This is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.
Good evening, Philippines, and good day, world. I'm Angel Pastor. It's Wednesday, the 19th of July, 2023, and you're watching Newsline World. We're here to bring you the top stories we've gathered from all over the globe. First, Philippine Department of Justice Secretary Jesus Crispin Remulla has a warning for the International Criminal Court should it try to enter the country to carry out an investigation on the previous administration's drug war. Former United States Secretary of State and former National Security Advisor Henry Kissinger meets top Chinese diplomat Wang Yi in Beijing. Our partner from CGTN will give us an update on this later on. Singapore's passport becomes the most powerful in the world. And the Philippine National Economic and Development Authority, or NEDA, approves 3 new infrastructure projects. These and more for tonight's edition of Newsline World. First in our news, the Philippine Department of Justice Secretary Jesus Crispin Remulla warned the International Criminal Court in case it insists on entering the country to conduct an investigation. What exactly did he say? Let's hear from Margaret Parcasio's report.
The Philippines will no longer respond to the International Criminal Court or ICC Appeals Chamber's rejection of the government's appeal in the drug war probe. Justice Secretary Jesus Crispin Remulla said he will talk to Solicitor General Minardo Guevara to ignore the ICC. Following the unfavorable decision of the appeals chamber, the ICC prosecutors will proceed with its investigation into the country's war on illegal drugs during the previous administration. But Secretary Remulla warned the ICC should it attempt to enter the Philippines to investigate.
Hindi natin sila gustong pumunta rito at wag silang pupunta rito sapagkat ang gagawin nila ay usurpation of authority ng Philippine government. Magkakaproblema tayo lahat. Pag ginawa nila yan, they'll be violating our law and our legal system. Kung gusto nila tayo sakupin, talagang magkakalintik-lintik yan. Hindi talaga tayo papayag. No conditions yan. Respect our sovereignty or else.
The Secretary reiterated that there is already an investigation being conducted related to the drug war, adding that someone has already been convicted. They are also autopsying corpses that are said to be victims of the drug war. But he said there is still not enough evidence for this because no witness has yet to come forward. Remulla insisted they are not just going to imprison people without having sufficient reason to imprison them.
Gusto nyo ba may mga taong nakukulong na walang ebidensya? Tanong ko sa inyo, papayag ba kayo kung kayo ikulong na walang ebidensya? Hindi, di ba? Kasi mali yun eh.
Remulla, on the other hand, slammed those who are criticizing the drug war who, according to the Justice Secretary, are allies of leftist groups.
Kakampi niyan ang National Democratic Front. Yung Human Rights Watch na yan, kakampi ng National Democratic Front yan. Kalaban ng gobyerno natin yan eh. Ang gusto lang ng NDF, CPP, NPA, pabagsakin ng gobyerno natin eh. Yan ang mga lumalaban sa atin dito. Yan ang mga tumutuligsa sa atin. Yung mga Human Rights Watch na yan, kakampi niyan ang NDF, CPP, NPA. Hindi man natin kakampi yan eh. Kalaban ng gobyerno natin yan.
The Office of the Solicitor General is as disappointed as the DOJ with the outcome of their appeal. The majority of the appeals chamber refused to recognize the sovereignty of the Philippines and its ability to investigate, saying the decision was not based on jurisdiction.
The majority decision does not alter the fact that the Republic, through its various national and local agencies, remains fully committed to the internal investigation and prosecution of allegations connected to the anti-illegal drug campaign. The Philippine government will not be deterred by today's outcome. The issue of jurisdiction is properly raised before the appeals chamber because the pre-trial chamber's finding on jurisdiction is an integral part of the impugned decision. The established principle of international law dictates that the court must satisfy itself of its own jurisdiction, and this power to determine its own jurisdiction exists regardless of whether the court is called upon to exercise this power or not.
The Foreign Council of the Philippines said that the country may question the jurisdiction of the ICC should it issue an arrest order.
Just to emphasize that there are no police powers for the ICC. It's important to note it does not have any enforcement powers. As I mentioned, it's very much reliant on the cooperation of states parties.
For God and my beloved Philippines, this has been Margaret Parcasio, SMNI News.
The Philippine National Police stressed that it will not cooperate with the International Criminal Court or ICC over the drug war campaign of the Duterte administration. The PNP added that it will take the lead on what the country's national leadership would say on the matter. Paul Montebon files this report.
Meron nga pong question sa jurisdiction ng ICC, and again, as part of the executive department, we will follow and support the lead of the national government not to participate in this investigation to be conducted by the ICC.
This is the PNP's stance following the ICC's decision to reject the Philippines' appeal on the continuation of the probe into the alleged excesses of the Duterte administration war on drugs campaign. The PNP said it will not issue any documents for the ICC, as they have already responded to the investigation conducted by the Department of Justice. PNP also said it will fully support and acknowledge the jurisdiction of the Philippine government as to the nature of the probe.
As to the cooperation, sir, again, katulad ng sinasabi ko, sir, kung ano po ang gagawin po at mandato po at lead po ng national government as to the nature po ng ating cooperation. But doon po sa magpapasailalim po ba tayo sa jurisdiction ng ICC, again, there is a question of jurisdiction. Remember po, during the time of President Rodrigo Duterte ay binawi na po natin yung ating membership sa ICC. Hence, there is really a question of jurisdiction. As to the extent and nature of cooperation po ng inyong pambansang pulisya, we will take the lead kung ano po yung sasabihin po ng national leadership, then the PNP will follow po.
And if the ICC insists on sending its representatives to the country, the PNP assured that it will follow the right process by following the mandate of the national leadership.
Yung kanila naman pong investigation po has to pass through the normal diplomatic channel po. So yung mga ganito pong mga question po is best served na itanong po natin sa national leadership. Dahil on the part of the PNP, kung ano po yung sasabihin sa atin ng ating national leadership, then we will follow po.
The PNP also challenged those who continue to push for the ICC probe related to the alleged abuses that happened during the war on drugs campaign of the Duterte administration, saying that they should contact or cooperate with the Department of Justice and present their evidence.
Yung ating pong judicial system ay gumagana po. Ito po yung stand natin. So, hayaan natin na yung appropriate courts ang duminig dito sa mga kaso na ito, at kung may mga hawak sanang mga ebidensya yung nagsusulong itong investigation sa ICC, it would be best to cooperate with the ongoing investigation ng DOJ, at kung may mga sapat po silang ebidensya, I think the DOJ is the proper office to take cognizance of these cases po.
For Ghana, for my country, the Philippines, reporting for Newsline World, this has been Paul Montebon, SMNI News.
Amid the deteriorating ties between China and the United States, former U.S. Secretary of State and former U.S. National Security Advisor Henry Kissinger visits China and recently met with senior Chinese diplomat Wang Yi. Our partner from CGTN, Dong Shu, will give us an update on this live from Beijing, China. Good evening, Dong Shu. Thank you for joining us on Newsline World here on SMNI.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, good evening. Can you tell us more about the meeting between Henry Kissinger and Wang Yi?
Well, sure. Well, the meeting comes at a time when both China and the United States were trying to re-establish
the high-level contacts due to the alleged surveillance balloon incident earlier in this February. Now we've seen, we've seen a couple of American high-level officials visited Beijing that include the Secretary of State Antony Blinken, as well as the Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. Also, John Kerry, the presidential envoy for climate change, is also wrapping up his trip today in Beijing. Well, and this is obviously not the first time Wang Yi and Kissinger has met face in face. Wang referring to Kissinger as an old friend, a term that basically implies high praise in Chinese diplomacy. Well, Wang commended the former U.S. diplomat for playing an irreplaceable role in enhancing mutual understanding between the two countries. And Wang said the United States needs a Kissinger-style diplomatic wisdom in its policies towards China, and Nixon-style political courage. As we know, Kissinger served as the U.S. State Secretary and National Security Advisor in the administration of the Presidents Richard Nixon as well as Gerald Ford. And Wang told Kissinger that it would be impossible to try to reform China, and even more impossible to encircle and contain China. Very strong position coming out from Chinese side, and also specifically on Taiwan. Wang said that the U.S. should distance itself from Taiwan independence separatist activities if it hopes for a stability across the Taiwan Straits. And Kissinger reportedly told Wang that maintaining stable relations between the United States and China concerns the world peace, stability, and the well-being of mankind. So no matter how difficult it is, both sides should treat each other as equals, maintain contact, and it is unacceptable to try to isolate or the one or the other.
Henry Kissinger played a significant role in shaping the relationship between China and the United States. But how can he help mend the two countries' deteriorating relations in our time today?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, Kissinger served as the U.S. State Secretary and National Security Advisor in the administration of Presidents Richard Nixon as well as Gerald Ford. He obviously played a key diplomatic role in the normalization of relations between Washington and Beijing back in the 1970s, and he had visited Beijing. He has visited China regularly since leaving office. He's 100 years old, and I counted he's had visited China probably over a lot of times. So people see him as both. I think people in both China and the United States see him as a brilliant strategist who made tough but necessary decisions to advance American interests in a complex world. Well, in times of today, I think it's always good to have him as a rational and positive voices and a role to play in better enhancing the bilateral relations between China and the United States.
A report from CCTV, and I quote, "One China was the solemn commitment made by the United States in the Shanghai Communique," Kissinger said, adding that he believes the U.S. will not waver or backtrack on that promise. However, recent actions taken by the United States seem to contradict this. Can you tell us what are some of the reactions of Beijing officials regarding this matter?
Well, to start with, I want to say, Taiwan is what the Chinese officials have repeatedly said, the core of the core interests of Chinese government and the red lines that shouldn't be crossed when dealing with China. Well, these are the messages that Chinese diplomats and Chinese officials have been constantly telling the world. So to cooperate with China, any country should respect the one China principle. That's the basis when dealing with China. So let me give you an example. Last year when the then U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan, China China dispatched warships and military aircraft to all sides of the island to strongly opposes such behaviors, and even had to cut off climate talks with the United States. So these are some of the impacts if countries had, violates the One China principle.
All right, Nongshi. Meanwhile, on different topic, on Monday, Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune visited China and met with President Xi Jinping the following day. For the knowledge of our international viewers, how did the meeting between the two presidents go?
Well, I think the meeting went well overall. We've seen concrete results coming out from these high-level talks. The two sides had signed bilateral cooperation in various fields, as well as a joint statement, and the two agreed to expand their cooperation in fields like technology sectors, and other other sectors as well. Well, this is President Tebboune's first visit to Beijing since coming to power in 2019, and follows his meeting with the Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow last month. He said that China is Algeria's most important friend and partner, and thanks to China's long-standing valuable support to Algeria, as well at the same time, Algeria firmly supports China's position on core interests, core issues such as Taiwan and Xinjiang-related issues, and is willing to actively participate in the constructions of China's Belt and Road Initiative, which actually marks the 10th anniversary this year. And also the bilateral ties, the historic ties between the two countries goes way back. When in 1955, the then Chinese foreign minister, or the Chinese premier, Zhou Enlai, encountered Algeria's nationalist delegation of the what called National Liberation Front at the Bandung Conference of African and Asian States. The very well-known conference that had basically united developing countries. By then, China was subsequently the first non-Arab country to recognize Algeria, where it gained independence from France in 1962. Now that 6 decades have passed, the two still kept a very close contact and also a very close cooperation in many fields. And as I mentioned earlier, Algeria is also first African countries to sign up and supported China's Belt and Road Initiative. So we can see the friendship, the cooperation between the two have grown stronger by times.
All right, thank you so much, Dong Xue, our CGTN reporter, live from Beijing, China. The Philippine National Economic and Development Authority, or NEDA board, has approved various infrastructure projects of the Marcos administration, including the proposal to rehabilitate the Ninoy Aquino International Airport. Details of this report from Hannah Jane Sancho.
The Philippines can expect a better passenger experience next year following the NEDA board's approval of the renovation of the Gateway of the Philippines, the Ninoy Aquino International Airport. On Wednesday, the NEDA board, chaired by President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr., approved 3 more infrastructure projects. In a press briefing in Malacanang, NEDA Secretary Arsenio Balisacan said the 3 infrastructure projects of the Marcos administration include the NAIA Public and Private Partnership Project, Summer Pacific Coastal Road 2 Project, and Laguindingan International Airport Project.
It is my pleasure to update everyone on the agreements reached during the 7th meeting of the NEDA board, which was presided over by President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. this morning. Today, the NEDA board approved 3 new infrastructure projects, while also approving changes to 4 ongoing projects, particularly in disaster risk reduction and climate change, irrigation, and transportation.
The second approved project is the Summer Pacific Coastal Road 2 project with a budget of 7.48 billion pesos. This project involves the construction of 2 marine bridges, the Laoag 2 Bridge and the Kalumutan Bridge. Balisacan added that the project also includes the reparation of existing roads between Laoag Island and the mainland of Samar Island, which spans around 15 kilometers. Meanwhile, the Lagadigan Airport project in Misamis Oriental has a budget of 12.75 billion pesos and will be led by the Department of Transportation and Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines, or CAAP. The said project aims to establish green and connected airports into its design, as well as the use of digital technologies to improve passenger experience. NEDA believes that this project will benefit not only for the people of Misamis Oriental, but for the entire northern Mindanao. The Marcos administration meanwhile said the long-standing problem in NAIA will be resolved now that the NEDA board has approved the NAIA PPP project. The said project aims to adjust and expand passenger capacity and aircraft movement restriction, among other issues.
This project is under the Department of Transportation and the Manila International Airport Authority, with a total project cost of 170.6 billion pesos. The goal of the project is to address long-standing issues at NAIA, such as the inadequate capacity or passenger terminal buildings and restricted aircraft movement.
The rehabilitation project for NAIA will also expand the current annual airport capacity from 35 million to at least 62 million passengers. Meanwhile, air traffic movement will be upgraded from 40 to 48 airplanes per hour. Furthermore, the NAIA rehabilitation project aims to address the long queues and waiting lines, among other difficulties experienced by NAIA passengers. The NEDA board also approved the modification of the Marcos administration's 4 more infrastructure projects in disaster risk reduction and climate change, irrigation, and transportation.
Meanwhile, the NEDA board also approved requests for reasonable changes in scope, cost, design, and/or loan validity of 4 ongoing infrastructure projects.
Balisacan said that the projects approved by the NEDA board are proof that the Marcos administration is committed to its goal of achieving the 8-point socio-economic agenda under the Philippine Development Plan 2023 to 2028 that aims to reduce Philippine poverty rate and promote inclusive growth for all Filipinos. NEDA also said that the Malacanang would issue an executive order regarding the master plan on the government's infrastructure projects to ensure its proper implementation across the country. For God and my beloved Philippines, this has been Hannah Jane Sancho, SMNI News.
Several landslide-prone areas in the Philippines still need an early warning system. According to the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, the said system is necessary for communities to prepare for calamities and to respond efficiently and quickly. But the agency admits that their budget is limited. More of this report from Jason Rubrico.
Barangay Lipata in the municipality of Parana, Samar Province is one of those considered prone to landslides in the country. That is why the barangay is among the 52 sites that have been given equipment for a 24/7 early warning system from the Dynaslope project of the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, or PVOX. Parana's Mayor Eunice Babalcon said that having an early warning system is a big help for the said community to respond and prepare efficiently during calamities. With this, the mayor wants the national government to focus on public preparedness against landslides and other disasters by installing early warning systems.
Sana po matutukan talaga siya ng national level or national agencies, especially po yung early warning systems. Kasi medyo nakafocus po tayo sa post-disaster po yung mga relief operations, response and rescue, pero hindi po natin natututukan yung preparedness ng mga tao.
But PVOX admitted that their budget is limited for an additional early warning system, specifically for landslides. So PVOX Director Teresito Bacolcol hopes that PVOX modernization bill will be enacted for additional funds.
With the pending PVOX modernization bill na nasa Congress ngayon, sana ma-expand pa natin yung network from 52 to can add more sites.
Bacolcol said that the bill will be considered for the Appropriations Committee. But if a local government has a budget, Bacolcol said they're ready to help the local government unit, or LGU, to have equipment for a 24/7 early warning system for landslides that costs from 200,000 pesos to 500,000 pesos.
We're hoping next year na again sana madagdagan yung budget namin with especially for the Dyna slope. And but if there are again, as I mentioned earlier, if there are LGUs willing to fund the fabrication as well as the installation of sensors, then we're willing to train them and help them.
PVOX has identified several other areas in the country that should have early warning systems for landslides, including the provinces of Ifugao and Abra. But what is the basis to say that a sensor is needed in a particular area for landslides?
Yung mga LGUs na may mga slopes na at risk talaga, as in kinakakitaan na talaga ng mga features. And then may mga at-risk facilities and communities. Yun yung ideal na paglagyan talaga ng sensor natin.
On Wednesday morning, PVOX conducted the national conference to encourage local governments and the public to have an early warning system. The agency hopes to increase the number of communities or local governments that want to assess their area and be among those who will be helped by the Dynaslope project. For God and my beloved Philippines, I am Jason Rubrico, SMNI News.
In other news, another heart-wrenching gun violence tragedy occurred in the United States after a 3-year-old toddler fatally shot his infant sister in California, further raising questions on gun control. A tragedy struck San Diego, California on Monday after a 3-year-old toddler reportedly picked up a gun and accidentally shot his 1-year-old sister. According to the San Diego County Sheriff's Department, they received a call on Monday morning about a shooting at home in Fallbrook. The deputies arrived and confirmed that the 3-year-old toddler had gotten hold of an unsecured handgun. His 1-year-old sister, meanwhile, suffered a head injury and was transported to a local hospital. Unfortunately, the infant was pronounced dead at 8:30 in the morning local time. This horrifying tragedy further raised questions on the alarming increase of gun violence in the United States. As of Saturday, America has reported at least 221 accidental shootings of children this year alone. Of this number, 78 has died and 151 were injured, as per the Every Town for Gun Safety, a non-profit organization advocating for gun control. Meanwhile, NATO member Hungary opposed the plan of delivering weapons to Ukraine to aid the said country in its fight against Russian forces. Carlo de la Peña for the rest of this report.
Hungary expressed opposition to any weapon deliveries to Ukraine and especially stands against the use of cluster munitions. According to Hungarian Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó, the solutions must come at the negotiating table and not on the battlefield.
Generally speaking, we are against the usage of such weapons because they are extremely dangerous and they can put the lives of civilians at risk very badly. So it's not an accident that we have joined the global initiative to ban the cluster bombs. So we are absolutely not happy with the decision of the United States in this regard, and we do see it as a decision which can bring further suffering and further casualties. More generally speaking, we definitely don't like any weapon deliveries to Ukraine.
The Hungarian foreign minister stated that the more weapons are sent to Ukraine, the longer the conflict will last and the higher the number of deaths and injuries will be. He also emphasized for concerted efforts to bring about a ceasefire and called on all sides involved to resolve the crisis through negotiations, not through fighting.
We don't see any battleground solution. We only see solution around the negotiating table. We only see the diplomatic solution. There's no solution on the battlefield, but there are casualties on the battlefield. The more days, the more casualties. So therefore, we should stop that. We should stop that for all.
It can be remembered that the U.S. in early July announced that it will deliver cluster munitions to Ukraine as part of the $800 million, a decision which has elicited sharp criticism worldwide, not least from Hungary. Reporting, this has been Carlo de la Peña, SMNI News.
The BRICS summit is set to take place in South Africa in August, and amid speculations, South Africa announced that Russian President Vladimir Putin will not attend the summit. The details with Jane Cognita.
The office of South African President Cyril Ramaphosa announced that Russian President Vladimir Putin will not attend the BRICS summit leaders set to take place in Johannesburg, South Africa in August. A statement released by the office of the South African president on Wednesday said, quote, "By mutual agreement, President Vladimir Putin of the Russian Federation will not attend the summit, but the Russian Federation will be represented by Foreign Minister Mr. Sergei Lavrov." Russia, on the other hand, has yet to confirm South Africa's statement. It can be remembered that the office of Russian President Putin said no final decision has been taken regarding his plans for the BRICS summit. The BRICS is an acronym for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, the fast-growing economies of the world, and the event in August would be the first face-to-face gathering of BRICS leaders in several years. Talks on whether Putin will attend the summit has been looming for months, as South Africa is a member of the International Criminal Court, or the ICC. The said body issued an arrest warrant for Putin over his alleged role of kidnapping Ukrainian children, to which Russia has rejected, saying that such charges are politically motivated and misrepresenting the evacuation of Ukrainian children from the conflict zone. It can also be remembered that South African President Cyril Ramaphosa on Tuesday warned that the ICC arrest warrant for Putin would amount to a declaration of war against Russia, and that it would be inconsistent for the South African Constitution to risk engaging a war with Russia, and the move would also fail his duty to protect his country. As an ICC signatory, South Africa is obliged to help in Putin's arrest, noting that the South African president has long sought to quit the said international body. Ramaphosa has resisted immense pressure from the United States to condemn Russia over the conflict in Ukraine by maintaining neutrality, and said that the expansion of NATO triggered the crisis between Russia and Ukraine. South Africa's leading opposition party, the Democratic Alliance, on the other hand, demanded that the government arrest Putin and turn him over to the ICC once he sets foot in the country. Russia, meanwhile, is not a party of the Rome Statute that established the ICC. The Kremlin has said that the ICC has no authority against Russia. Reporting, this has been Jane Cognita, SMNI News.
Earlier Wednesday, North Korea fired 2 short-range ballistic missiles towards the Sea of Japan. More details from Natsumi Kojima.
Following the recent nuclear consultative group meeting between the United States and South Korea, North Korea test-fired another 2 short-range ballistic missiles near the Sea of Japan.
The missile test that was launched between 3:30 and 3:46 a.m. Wednesday was North Korea's apparent response to the recently conducted first meeting of the Korea-US Nuclear Consultative Group, or NCG, held Tuesday, July 18th, at the office of the President in Seoul, just days after North Korea launched a solid-fuel intercontinental ballistic missile towards the Sea of Japan. The talks were participated by Kim Tae-hyo, South Korea's principal deputy national security advisor, and Kurt Campbell, coordinator for Indo-Pacific affairs on the U.S. National Security Council, where the 2 leaders agreed to conduct joint military drills and war simulations to deter North Korea from using nuclear weapons. The Nuclear Consultative Group is a consultative body that was launched and agreed through the Washington Declaration announced last April at a bilateral summit, in which both countries share information and discuss measures to counter North Korea's nuclear threat. Japanese Defense Minister Yasukazu Hamada disclosed that the 2 projectiles fell outside Japan's exclusive economic zone, 370 kilometers from its coastline.
Furthermore, Yasukazu Hamada added there were reports of damage to aircraft nor ships, and that a protest to North Korea's provocation was set through a diplomatic channel. 以上日本から小島の津見ニュースお伝えしました。SMNI News Japan.
Finland's state-owned energy provider Gasum restarted buying liquefied natural gas, or LNG, from a plant controlled by a Russian company. More of this report from Kirby Hill, Trinidad.
Gasum restarted purchasing processed gas from Russia's Kryvyi Vostochny plant, controlled by Russia's Novatek, a few months after both sides terminated their long-term supply deal. Based on the latest Refinitiv ship tracking data, an oil tanker delivered a LNG cargo from the Russian plant to the Finnish port of Tornio on July 3. This came after the Russian gas company announced last month that Finland's Gazprom had not been taking LNG from Russian gas company Novatek since April. In May, Gazprom became the first European company to have terminated a contract to buy natural gas from Gazprom Export via pipelines from Russia. Gazprom, on the other hand, confirmed it had completely stopped gas deliveries to the Finnish energy provider since May 2022 after the latter refused to pay the Russian company in rubles. The demand for ruble payments urged Gazprom to launch arbitration proceedings against the Russian gas company. An arbitration panel later ruled that Gazprom could pay in euro and ordered the two sides to negotiate and resolve the situation. Gazprom as well as Novatek and Gazprom Export have not provided any official statements yet in regards to the decision of restarting the long-term supply deal with Russia's Gazprom. Reporting from Sweden, this has been Kiril Trinidad, SMNI News.
Qatar is set to host a major liquefied natural gas or LNG conference in 2026. Jonathan Acobo reports.
Qatar prepares to host another major event with thousands of delegates expected to attend the 21st International Conference and Exhibition on Liquefied Natural Gas in 2026. The 20th International Conference and Exhibition on Liquefied Natural Gas was held recently in Vancouver, British Columbia from July 10 to 13. The conference is a significant global gathering in the LNG industry and is poised to be one of the world's biggest conferences in the next 3 years. The international event will gather LNG producers and distributors, as well as showcase the continued growth and development of the sector across the globe. Qatar currently owns the third largest known reserve of natural gas in the world after Russia and Iran. The oil-rich nation in the Persian Gulf has existing reserves of approximately 24.7 trillion cubic meters of natural gas, making it one of the top 15 oil-exporting countries and one of the world's major fertilizer producers. In April, a report published by the Gas Exporting Countries Forum, or GECF, named Qatar the largest liquefied natural gas exporter in the world in 2022. The international conference scheduled in 2026 will coincide with the start of the multi-billion Northfield LNG expansion project, which is slated to be the largest of its kind in the LNG industry once it reaches full completion. Reporting from Doha, this is Jonathan Acobo, SMNI News, Qatar.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's visit to Saudi Arabia resulted in the signing of an executive defense cooperation between the two countries. From this, Saudi Arabia will be purchasing Turkey's most advanced combat drone to date. Erdogan arrived in Saudi Arabia on Monday as part of his three-nation tour in the Gulf region, which kicked off this week. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman welcomed the Turkish leader, who was accompanied by an entourage of some 200 business people. The defense ministers of both countries signed an executive plan for defense cooperation, which include the purchase of Turkey's most advanced drone, known as the Bayraktar Akinci. Akinci, which is the Turkish word for Raider, is a high-altitude, long-endurance unmanned combat aerial vehicle with heavy firepower and is capable of performing air-to-air or air-to-ground and air-to-air attack missions. The CEO of Turkish defense company Baykar described the deal as the largest defense and aviation export contract in the history of the Republic of Turkey. Without disclosing the exact amount of the sale, the deal made Saudi Arabia the third country in the Gulf region to have purchased the Turkish Baykar drones after Qatar and Kuwait. Turkey aims to secure billions of dollars worth of foreign investments after Erdogan's visit to the region. Both sides also signed several memorandums of understanding in many fields, including energy, direct investments, and defense industries. Meanwhile, the leader of the hugely popular progressive opposition party in Thailand has been suspended from his parliament duties by the Constitutional Court hours before a critical vote that will determine his chance to become the country's next prime minister. Anissa de Guzman reports.
Move Forward Party leader Pita Limjanurat has been suspended from his role as an elected member of the House of Representatives by the Constitutional Court on Wednesday, causing him to walk out from the chamber in front of his fellow lawmakers earlier today. The court's decision came after accepting a case that Pita was unqualified to run in May's election due to his ownership of shares in the now-defunct media company ITV Public Company Limited. The judges unanimously agreed to accept the case and suspend him from his parliament duties until the ruling is delivered. The court instructed the Move Forward Party leader to provide his explanation within 15 days of receiving a copy of the ruling. By Wednesday afternoon, Pita left the chamber after the court's suspension order had arrived. The 42-year-old raised his fist in the air as he left the assembly floor. Fellow lawmakers gave him a round of applause, while the parliament president thanked him for respecting the rules. A political activist who filed the complaint in May pointed out that Pita's media shares violated the Constitution, and his assets were not declared when he assumed the post of MP in May 2019. Pita has argued that 42,000 shares were part of his late father's estate, and he was just assigned as manager of the family heritage, while the title had since been transferred to relatives. The court suspension, however, does not prevent the MFP leader from being nominated as prime minister. A spokesman for the U.S. Department of State earlier this week said that Washington is monitoring the post-election developments in Thailand and expressed concern about the legal system in the Southeast Asian nation. Di siya Anissa de Guzman, Drangan Chakon Pep Mahanapon, SMNI News, Pratatay, Sawadika.
China has invited Thailand to participate in Asia's largest exhibition for automotive technologies in October. Satmukompi Samay Guzon reports.
Automobile manufacturers from Thailand have been invited to take part in the Automotive World China 2023, set to take place in Shenzhen from October 11 to 13, 2023. The event is said to be the largest exhibition for automotive technologies in Asia. The exhibition will showcase the latest technologies and solutions for the entire new energy vehicle and EV and internal combustion vehicle ICV industry chain. China was hailed as the world's largest vehicle exporter in the first quarter of 2023 and continues to be the world's largest vehicle market by both annual sales and manufacturing output. Its domestic production is expected to reach 35 million vehicles by 2025. The economic powerhouse maintained its position as the leading center for automobile production and the largest automotive consumer market globally for 14 consecutive years. The event will give Thai participants a platform to engage in negotiations and cooperation with Chinese industry professionals, as well as strengthen supply chains and explore collaboration prospects. รายงานจากราชบุรีนายชัดมงคลพิสมัยโกศล SMNI News ประเทศไทย สวัสดีครับ
Member states of a major Trans-Pacific trade deal said they were gathering information on countries interested in joining the agreement. Jillian Libuet reports.
The Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, or CPTPP, is evaluating nations interested to join the pact, such as China and Taiwan, to see whether they were able to meet the group's high standards. Formed in 2018, the CPTPP is a free trade agreement between 11 countries, including Australia, Canada, New Zealand, Japan, Brunei, Chile, Malaysia, Mexico, Peru, Singapore, and Vietnam. The combined GDP of its member states has reached $13.5 trillion and includes some of the largest fast-growing economies in the world. On July 16, 2023, the United Kingdom became the group's 12th member. The membership came more than 3 years after Britain left the European Union on February 2020, or more commonly known as Brexit. In 2017, the Trump administration withdrew from the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP, causing the group to be renamed CPTPP in 2018. Besides Taiwan and China, other countries that have applied to join are Ukraine, Costa Rica, Uruguay, and Ecuador. The Biden administration has stated it is not currently interested in joining the CPTPP 6 years after it had withdrawn from the trade agreement. Reporting from New South Wales, this has been Gillian Libowit, SMNI News, Australia.
An Australian man and his dog were finally rescued after spending 3 months drifting in the Pacific Ocean. Devi Suarez gives us more on the story.
Timothy Lindsay Shattuck and his canine companion Bella were supposed to embark on an exciting journey when a storm destroyed their vessel and caused them to be stranded at sea for months. A Mexican fishing boat rescued them from the ocean after facing a very difficult ordeal at sea for months. The boat crew provided the pair with medical attention, food and water after they were recovered in a precarious state without any food and shelter. The amateur sailor and his dog were supposed to travel a distance of about 3,700 miles from the coastal city of La Paz in Mexico to French Polynesia in April, when the catamaran named Aloha Toa was severely damaged by a storm and wiped out its electronics. Shattuck said they survived the ordeal by drinking rainwater and eating raw fish caught with their fishing gear while stranded in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. The Australian man thanked his rescuers and expressed his gratitude for being saved from such a distressing situation along with his dog. Shattuck and his dog arrived at the port of Manzanillo on the Pacific coast of Mexico on Tuesday. Reporting from New South Wales, this is Devi Suarez, SMNI News, Australia.
Singapore marked a new milestone after unseating Japan's 5-year reign as the most powerful passport in the world. Meanwhile, the United States continues to get weaker. Renjo Modikilio has the news.
The highly prestigious Henley Passport Index, which regularly ranks passports based on the number of countries their holders can enter visa-free or with visa on arrival, has just released its latest report, stunningly revealing Singapore's ascent to the top spot. In a monumental milestone, Singapore has officially surpassed Japan in having the world's most powerful passport, signaling a major shift in global passport rankings and opens up new horizons for Singaporean citizens. Singaporean passport holders now enjoy seamless travel to a record-breaking number of countries, granting them visa-free access to an extensive 192 destinations worldwide. This remarkable feat showcases Singapore's commitment to international relations and its growing prominence on the global stage. For years, Japan held the coveted position of having the world's most powerful passport, and its citizens could travel visa-free to numerous countries. However, Singapore's strategic diplomatic efforts and extensive bilateral agreements have allowed its passport to surge ahead, granting its citizens greater freedom and ease to travel across borders. The Singaporean government's emphasis on maintaining strong diplomatic ties, fostering mutually beneficial partnerships, and promoting economic cooperation has undoubtedly contributed to this historic achievement. The Lion City's reputation as a reliable and respected global player has played a pivotal role in securing this new milestone. Prime Minister of Singapore Lee Hsien Loong expressed his pride in the country's achievement, stating, "This is a testament to Singapore's commitment to engaging with the international community and fostering strong relationships with nations across the globe. Our nation's success is a result of the collective efforts of our citizens, government, and partners worldwide." The news has been met with widespread celebration among Singaporeans, who now have an unprecedented level of travel freedom. The new passport ranking not only enhances travel opportunities, but also reflects positively on the nation's overall global standing and influence. As the world emerges from the challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic, this development is expected to have significant implications for tourism, trade, and business, as Singaporeans can explore a broader range of countries with ease. While Japan may have been overtaken this time, it remains a strong contender with its passport granting access to 188 countries visa-free or with visa on arrival. The competition between the two Asian powerhouses for the top spot showcases the increasing importance of passport strength in the context of global mobility and connectivity. Meanwhile, the United States passport ranked 8 with a decline of 2 places from last quarter. A Skip report citing Annie Forsheimer, a former U.S. Department of State career diplomat, suggested that America's static state of affairs is likely to remain due to the lack of demand from the inside U.S. For a change in policy, the extreme political risk for any group or politician who unwittingly facilitates travel by a terrorist, and the fact that tourism has surged post-pandemic anyway, even with a restrictive visa waiver program. She also said, and quote, "Unfortunately, the status quo over time may well contribute to a decline in U.S. soft power if businesses struggle to invite partners to trade shows and meetings. Tourists encounter needless application delays and look elsewhere, and open xenophobia erodes the public reputation of the U.S. as a world leader." End of quote. As the world continues to evolve, passport rankings are likely to remain a dynamic and closely watched metric, reflecting a nation's global relationships and influence. For now, Singapore takes center stage, basking in the glory of its newfound title as the possessor of the world's most powerful passport. This has been Renju Mudikilio, SMNI News, Singapore.
And before we end, may you be inspired with the message of the appointed Son of God. And that's all for today's edition of Newsline World. For more news update, you may visit SMNINewsChannel.com or follow us on our official social media accounts on Rumble, Facebook, and Twitter. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, I'm Angel Pastor. Thank you for watching Newsline World. And thank you to our beloved pastor, Pastor Apollo Siki Buloy, for the opportunity to be part of this program. May you continue to listen in SMNI as it delivers nothing but fair, truthful, and balanced news, because SMNI is your source of credible news.